I'll just say it was all Emmy's fault. It wasn't me, mate. It was Cuz. That's what I'd say.
Especially that Parades guy, you know. Um,
Oh God, he was a thug, wasn't he?
it was. It
Absolute
was.
thug.
I don't know what I think. All right, so let's just save this conversation for when we
Yeah.
get back to the I was just gonna say so um okay now I'm just gonna do the recording. Come on now. Okay, that's good. Just one last thing is to
I'll just say it was all Emmy.
yeah, okay, so uh, right, do you want to do the opening introduction for this one, please, bro? Sorry.
Yep. We're recording. Yep.
Yes, we are.
Good man. Okay. Well, this is second segment, the second segment of our weekly football referee podcast. I'm Trevor Gear, and he calls me Bruv.
And I'm Emmy Hickins, and he calls me Cos. Welcome to the second segment of the football referee. Right, so what was your question, bro? Let's get
My question was: do you think Thomas Tuchel should be sacked, or should he be allowed to continue at least until the Euros in 2028?
That's a very good question. Now, first of all, when I after the Argentina game, because that was really painful to watch, because you knew there was goal coming, you just didn't know when. Because we were just sitting back, and all you could see the manager do is bring in defenders. He'll take off a striker, bring in a defender, and then when they scored, he started bringing in strikers. You think, what are you doing? You're
Too late.
confusing
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
So after that game, I would have said, sack him. Easy decision for me. I'd have said, yeah, get rid of him. You know, he's not. He's very confused. He's not. He doesn't know what he's doing. Under pressure, he doesn't know what he's doing. So get rid of him. But then there was that spectacular game against France, which were the favorites. They were everyone's favorite. So I thought, I'm not watching this game. I said to my wife, I said, I'm not watching this game. And she said, why not? You love football. And she said, I bet you're going to watch it. I said, yeah, I'm going to watch it. So anyway, I thought, of course it's England. So sat down, started watching it. And, within 20 minutes, they were 3-0 down, France. Just under 20 minutes, it was 3-0 down. And I kept thinking, how many more can we score? I thought it was going
Mm.
to be like six, seven, eight. It was six in the end. And I thought, wow, this is great. And my wife kept saying to me, who knows absolutely nothing about football, she kept saying to me, you wish they'd played this well against Argentina, didn't you? I said, I know.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
anyway, so so after the game, and then the second half, we saw that England again. Panicking, and I thought, oh my days, they're gonna win this game. I can't believe it. We're 4-0 up in the first half, and now we're gonna lose by 5-4. That's what I honestly thought.
Mm.
It was a depressing thing to think, but you know, thankfully, we scaled through. And I thought to myself, I think I was a bit overwhelmed by the victory. Not the victory we wanted, but it was a victory
Mm.
anyhow. And I was a bit overwhelmed by the victory that I totally forgot about sacking him. I thought, I
That's
totally
fair
forgot.
enough. It was a good
Yeah,
performance. You got to
it
say.
was. It was a good performance. It was entertaining to watch.
Mm.
There was a lot of goals. That should have been the final. That should have been the final. So anyway, so do we sack him now? I don't know. Because we beat France. And France, they were good. Because when they came back in the second half, they were on fire. We just narrowly scaled through. Can you imagine if we scored 3 goals and we sat back on 3 goals? That game would have ended
Mm,
4-3.
mm.
So on that, I'm still a bit on the fence about whether to sack him or not. So that's the answer to that question.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah.
yeah. No, I was going to say that it was an interesting second half in the England France game because the first half France were not there. They just were not at the races, as you might say. But they came out. I think probably there was probably a lot of anger in their dressing room at half time because they just didn't look interested. And of course, England, all credit, they were always going to go out and do their best. I mean, it wasn't the same team as we'd seen against Argentina. I wonder if people like Harry Kane and others, like the rest of us, had lost a bit of heart in it. And of course, Bellingham didn't start the game either. But nonetheless, it was an England team, and because there were 2 or 3 or 4 new faces there, like Saka and who else? Or Rashford came on, and they were very good on the wings and penetrating the defence. But at the same time, France were not really much opposition. Now that's not to necessarily say our 4-0 was a bit lucky. We still had to play to get those goals. But in the second half, it was different. You said earlier that you felt we started reverting to what we did against Argentina, which in a way we did. But I think a lot of that was because France had come out all guns blazing. And I tell you what, I mean, we all know Elise is a wonderful footballer. He used to be at Palace, and we know that he's at Bayern Munich and wanted now, I think, by Real Madrid. Tremendous player, but he actually, ironically, he missed three. By his standards, he missed 3 sitters in the second half. He put them by the round the post or whatever. It was so unlike him because he's quite a sharpshooter. I think he got over 20 goals last season for Bayern and a record number of assists as well. And he's a real player that's developing every game, it seems. But inexplicably, he missed those chances, and 1 or 2 other chances were missed as well. Henderson, I thought, played well in goal, the goalkeeper, so he saved some more. But if those chances had been taken, we would have undoubtedly lost the game. But okay, it doesn't matter because they didn't take those chances, and obviously we then did go on to get a couple more goals anyway. So yeah, it was a good result, but not one, in my view, to be correctly compared to performance-wise to any of the other games that England played because they weren't still in the competition. Okay, we were going for the third place, but we were out of the World Cup with all these heartache, that's not too strong a word, on the part of the players and the fans. We were so hopeful this time that we would get this. We really were in this country. It would have been great for this country to have won that, undoubtedly, at this time.
Mm.
But it wasn't to be. And so yeah, we can say, well, at least we came third, which is the best result since 1966 when England won the World Cup, in that
Mm.
we've come third, which we haven't done before. But yeah, the disappointment still lingers, I'm sure, in the minds of most of us and will do. But I think it's probably clear from what they said that the FA will retain Thomas Tuchel, and probably rightly so. We know it in our football here in England, managers are hired and fired in very quick succession. If things go wrong for a very short period, they get sacked basically. And so it's quite good in one way that okay, we haven't won the World Cup. We didn't do badly in it. We got to the semis, although many would say we didn't really ever play that well, apart from the first half against Croatia, where I thought we looked like world beaters in that first half against Croatia. We really did. And I
Mm.
remember thinking and saying, I bet all the other countries watching that game, and it was almost the end of the first week of games, I
Mm.
said, I bet they all wish they had a Bellingham and a Kane because they were brilliant in that game. But really, the rest of the tournament, we were I mean, I think we beat Panama 6-1, didn't we? So obviously we
Mm.
played okay there. But in most of the games, we were not shining as a team, I don't think. So in a way, it's not surprising we didn't get to the final. But yeah, I think it's probably right that they're going to keep Tuchel. I hope I hope he's learned something. He's
Mm.
not really ever taken personal responsibility and said, "Well, yeah, hands up, I got those substitutions wrong." Instead of which he said, "Well, no, it's in the DNA of English players to, to defend deeply and not to sort of attack after they've scored a goal." Well, I don't know about that. Maybe he's got something in that, but even though he's not admitted that his substitutions were, shall we say, careless,
Mm.
I hope he does realise inwardly that he got that wrong. Because if he didn't, who's to say he wouldn't do the same thing again or allow the
Yeah.
so-called English DNA of negativity to
Yeah.
creep in again, which is we'll never win anything if that's what happens.
Yeah. I just thought he just needed to he needed to spend more time with the players. So I kind of forgive him a little bit because um he were experimenting throughout the whole competition. He was trying out different players. You take one off, you put another one in, and then they watch the game and then they think, and then you get lucky.
Yeah, but just
And
to interrupt you there, I don't agree with what he did. And I used to
mm,
say on our podcast 2 or 3 months before that, in my opinion, you might say, what do I know in terms of football management? But in my opinion, um, a manager of an international team should pretty much know the team, his broad team, with maybe a couple of subs, two or
mm,
3 months at least before the tournament, so that any friendlies which come up, and there's not that many, let's face it, he
mm,
starts to play that team and then use this as substitutes and so on. Now, when the competition comes, I still think being able to choose 26 players is far too many because you are inevitably going to leave most of them, or certainly not apart from the team and maybe 3 or 4 subs who are regularly coming on. The rest,
mm.
they may get a few minutes at the end of a game, 10 minutes, but you are going to leave some probably frustrated, disappointed players. Having said that, they're selected knowing that that could happen, so they can't say too much. But we've seen players in the past experience that a couple of times at tournaments, and then say, "I don't want to stand anymore." I mean, there was Ben White, I think, said that. I think is it Arsenal now? I think so. Paul Scholes said that. Jamie Vardy. They all pulled out of international football, having gone to tournaments and really not being used at all, or very, very little. So I would reduce that 26 to about 20 at the most. So you can try and keep everybody a bit happier. But you just said it, that even once we won that first game, he made
Mm.
changes every game. Now, I think
He did.
experience, if you look back at World Cup victories, and not just for us, but teams tend to stick with broadly the same team, especially if they're winning. If you have a bad loss, then change it a bit. But he didn't. He changed 2 or 3 players, it seems to me, pretty much every game we played. And I
He
don't
did.
think it doesn't help the team to gel as a team, to know where they're going to be, at the corner of their eye, or just you could develop a relationship with other players on the pitch. And I think by constantly tinkering with it, more than tinkering, 2 or 3 players changed each time, that just doesn't work because they know each other little enough by not working as club colleagues. So you've got to get that relationship, that gelling together of your basic team with maybe 2 or 3 subs, and then when the tournaments come, you go for it. The players will know each other because they've been playing together. And yes, you may need to use others because of injuries. So you do want 20 or 21 players. But otherwise, I think it's too many. And it must be in the mind of a manager by having 26 players, and he knows he's only using 15, 14 or 15, 16 of them at the most, generally. He knows
Mm.
he's got to try and keep motivated other players. And maybe Tuchel's way of doing that is to change the team so he can actually effectively use, I don't know, 18 or 19 of the players. But that doesn't work. I just do not believe that works. And the other thing we've not really talked about
Mm.
is his initial selections. And we discussed that on our podcast at the time. Now, of course, there's a million different managers' opinions. All of us are managers, aren't we? Armchair managers, and well, I would have done this and I would have done that. At the end of the day, you have a manager whose ability we believe is good enough to make the decisions, which generally I think people agree with. But I think there was a lot of discomfort or disagreement on some of those selections, and more than that, who he actually left out. And 26 people, I really would have thought there could have been room for one or two or three or four people. I mean,
Yeah.
these four names I'll give you, others will say no. Others will say, yeah, it's not bad. I mean, Phil Foden, now at Man City, he didn't have the greatest season, to be fair, but that
Mm.
doesn't mean to say he couldn't shine at a World Cup. You know, it might be, I don't know what his age is now, but it might be his last chance to play in a World Cup, and he
Yep.
could have really been very useful. Um, Jared Bowen of West Ham, I think he had a good season despite their going down at the end of that season. My hunch is I think he's agreed now. He has agreed to stay there. Probably Danny Dyer has Jared's arm up the back or something like that to stay because they wouldn't want him to go, would they? But
Mm.
he's a good player to have. He's speedy. He gets down the wing or through the middle. He's an intelligent footballer. So he's another one. Adam Walton, not necessarily the complete article, but Real Madrid, it seems, want him. And I think the number being talked about is that 70, 75 million. Now, he may well go there, but he's got that ability. Even he's still young. He's 22, is he? 23, 22. Um, Still young, but he's got that ability to put through that cutting ball on the
Mm.
feet of his colleague. He sees that pass, which wipes out three or four of their defenders, and time
Yep.
and again, a goal will arise. We didn't really seem to have that type of creative midfield player in the team. You know, I thought Anderson played well, very well. He's going to Man City for 100 and something million, so
Mm.
his potential is there, and he's good. I don't see him as a very creative midfielder. He's more of someone who holds the middle and you know, very, very, very good at what he does. Um, so Bowen, Walton, um, Foden, and there's someone else I can't think of at the moment, but there were others who arguably could have gone there within that 26. And then you
Mm.
could look at some of those who you say, well, I think we said as well, Jordan Henderson was an excellent player at Liverpool. He was a good captain there as well. He went to Saudi and now he's at Brentford. Very sad accident he had, didn't he, by falling over the advertising thing and breaking his wrist. But he came back to the team and he's obviously very good as an influence in the dressing room. But I'm
Mm.
not sure. I'm not sure he warranted a place now in the team. Another one, actually, some people say should have been there was Harry Maguire. But I do think in Mark Gahey and John Stones, I think we had pretty good defenders there. You know, I don't think others may have done better than them.
Mm.
So, and there's probably one or two others. And the admission that Tuchel made on that selection, he actually said, well, I've chosen not necessarily the best players, but the players I think that can do a job. Well, I just found that a bit strange because, and I do take his point, you've got to horses for courses. A better player might not fit into what you're trying to do. I do understand that. But I think we had visible kind of gaps in what, like a creative midfielder, someone who's going to, you know, pass the ball out and beat the defence, the clever passes through the gaps. We didn't really see much of that. So maybe that was another aspect. Did he pick the best players? Did he really know our players enough, even though he's been there a couple of years now, hasn't he? Did he really know them well enough to get the right players in the team? I said before, I mean, Rashford, I thought played quite well when he in the bronze final, but I'm not sure I would have picked him. No disrespect. He's had, I think, an up and down season at Barcelona. I'm not even sure whether he's staying there. Perhaps he is. And as we said before, he has in the past got a bit distracted with things outside football. But yeah, he's a good player on his day, and he didn't do badly in the final, the bronze final. But I don't think I would have selected him initially. But as to say, there's all sorts of opinions, and I just think, given that we didn't win the objective, the World Cup, then it's valid to look at the build up to it, the selections the manager made, and the tactics he employed. So yeah, that's my opinion on that.
Yeah. Now, here's a crazy fact that I concocted of my own. And let's see how you feel about it. Now, excuse me. Thomas Tuchel. You know, like when we have the Premier League, so we have the Premier League and we have players playing in different competitions. Um, FA Cup, Carabao Cup, UCL, whatever, and they're playing all these different. When a team plays consistently, and I say a team, I mean a squad, like a con- when a manager chooses a squad and that squad is consistent. I'm not talking about changing squad,
Mm.
and they win games and they're consistent, and you keep on playing them. At some point, they're gonna get tired. Do you think that's what could have happened to England? Because we've got Harry Kane. Oh, Harry Kane is going to score goals.
Mm.
Jude Bellingham's going to score goals, and then we put them consistently because they produce
Yes,
results. But then we've got this guy in Saudi, Tony, Ivan Tony or something.
Ivan Toney, yeah,
We've
yeah.
got him. We've got Rashford, which I'm not a very good fan of anyway. But these are fresh legs. They've not played that many competitions. I can understand Madueke when he changed Madueke. I thought, okay, he's a good player, but he probably needs a rest. Declan Rice was not 100% fit. He had that
No,
bug
no.
and he never got rid of it. But then we've got somebody that could fill in that midfield position for him, like we did in our last game, although he was playing actually. But the coach never took all these things in. Do you think it might be inexperience on his part?
Yeah, I think there is an element of that, and as you rightly say, we were told time and again when you looked into it
Mm,
that our players over the last season have played a great many more games than most of the other teams, certainly than Argentina. You know, our players were up in the sort of around 60 games they played, certainly if they've been in Europe and stuff like that.
mm,
So by definition, they're going to suffer more tiredness, more fatigue.
mm,
Um, we underestimate. I remember when I used to play football regularly for a few years.
mm,
The what you give everything to it. You love it. And I remember sloshing around in the wet pitches and all sorts of things. But I also remember the next day I was pretty tired, and I'm going back a few years now when I was a bit younger. But when you give everything on a football pitch, especially on some heavy pitches, it
mm,
really leaves you shattered. Now, okay, nowadays professional footballers play on brilliant pitches, which actually I've often thought makes past generations of players, excuse me, even like Maradona, who was brilliant, but others as well, even better because they could play on muddy conditions like George Best and others of his generation. Players
mm,
today play on like billiard table surfaces, and it's therefore much easier to be, for the ball to behave properly, and you can anticipate all sorts of things. So, so yeah, but perhaps they don't suffer the tiredness that they used to. But I
mm,
know after a game of football, after the game of anything, if you play hockey, ice hockey, anything really, it's a physical. It's tough. I mean, we know tennis players, for example, are great athletes because
mm,
as most professional sports people are, because of the training and the muscle development and so on. So
mm,
if you're playing that number of games over a season, far more than your contemporaries at a tournament, then
mm,
it will play its part in what happens. Now, whether Tuchel, he should understand that because, of course, he was manager at Chelsea for a couple of
mm,
years. So he really should understand the needs of the Premier League and its players. But I don't know, whether he took that into account. For example, we didn't really see much of Saka, and yet when he was in the bronze final,
mm.
he was excellent, wasn't he? He got a
It
hat trick for
was
goodness sake.
absolutely.
And people wondered if he'd been fit, but he said he had been, but he was
Yeah.
barely used,
Mm,
and you wonder why. If he's taken him, why? why not play a player at top of his game? Arsenal, won the Premier League and so on. And even in that game against um, Argentina, we didn't see
Mm.
Madueke either, I don't think, did we? He didn't seem to put
No.
the fast ones on the wing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I do think Tuchel does get it. I think he's not silly. He knows he's got the experience to know what a footballer needs. I mean, they have all sorts of facilities, don't they? The massaging, the nutrition, everything is looked after and done very to a high level of professionalism. But
Mm.
if you're still playing 10 or 15 more games in the last season than all the others, or most of the others there, then it's gonna tell. It is absolutely gonna tell.
Absolutely, yeah. Because I thought about that, and I thought, because when you look at the game against Argentina, our attack was nowhere to be found. They was just they
No,
became defenders. In fact, Donald Trump made a joke about it. Um,
the Don, yeah.
he made a joke about it. It was my wife that showed it to me. She said, "Have you seen what Donald Trump's saying?" I said, "I haven't." And Donald Trump said, "Yeah, I don't know about, I don't know, what do I know about football? But I heard the English team, the England, they played their attackers in defense. They played the attackers
Mm,
defense." And I thought, he's joking about it, but there's some element of truth in that
yeah,
because
yeah.
because our attackers were supposed to be attacking, but they were defending. Harry Kane was defending. So was what's his name? Jude Bellingham. They were all
Mm,
defending, and I thought to myself, fatigue. They were
yeah,
tired.
yeah.
They were
And I think
absolutely, yeah,
it was suggested that with Harry Kane in defence and Bellingham, and I think Dan Burn, good
yeah,
defender, but he was kind of expected to be the one up front because of his
yeah.
height, I suppose.
Height,
But
yeah.
we never really got the ball up there anyway. That was the tragedy of it. But no, the tactics seemed to go to be completely messed up by the end of that match.
It
And I
was.
think there were so many broken hearts on the pitch in our team that they probably were aware of. I don't know. I don't think there was a greater expectation shown by us in England on the players. I think up until the tournament, there was probably the usual almost indifference because we're so used to going to these tournaments and not winning. We're just so
Mm,
it's in our DNA, this knowledge we're unlikely to win. But I think once it started, and that first game I think was key on this. That first certainly 20 minutes, but most of the first half against Croatia, we looked like world beaters. There was
mm,
something very encouraging about that,
we
such that
did.
I think a lot of us started to think, well, actually, this could be our time because you see the team play that well, but then what happens? He changed the team, only probably two or three players. He didn't stick with that team. So in the
No,
minds of those players who he drops from starting in the next game, they think, oh, I didn't do so well, obviously. And once you start to sow that into players' minds, it starts to fall apart. And our next game, I forget, was that one against Ghana, was it? I think it was. But we weren't the same team. And you thought, hang on a minute, what's happened here? And we sort of struggled through. We did get through, but it just struck me as a little bit, not easily. We were sort of having to work hard, perhaps apart from the Panama one.
mm,
But yeah, it wasn't to be. It just wasn't to be. And
yeah.
all these things come into play, I think, don't they?
I did, yeah. Now, still on England, but let's look at because you mentioned Pep Guardiola at some point. You said, if you choose any manager to get England to the final and possibly win the tournament, the World Cup, it would be Pep Guardiola. Well, there's some bad news on that, actually. Italy confirms talks with Pep Guardiola as the federation pushes to make him the next national team.
Really, really. Yeah, I find
Yeah,
that disappointing. I really, because
yeah.
they've not qualified, I think, for the last three World Cups. I
They
think.
haven't.
So, I mean, if they get him, they probably will. Yeah, I mean, good luck to them and good luck to him. But I feel we missed a chance there. Although once he said he was staying at City, I suppose there's nothing we could do. But
No.
I'm not entirely clear why they gave Tuchel a new contract before the World Cup to take him
Mm,
up to and just after the Euros. I mean, you thought they wanted to give themselves the possibility of being sacking somebody if it didn't go well, but instead
mm.
of which they committed themselves financially, at least, to him. So they didn't have a choice. And if they had have sacked him, they could probably have gone for Guardiola. But I didn't know that. Is that must be a recent bit of
It is a
news? Is it that
recent,
Italy
yeah, yeah.
are trying to
It's
get him?
today actually, yeah. So,
So it will be very interesting if it works. If he signs for them, I personally would bet money. I'm not a betting man, but I would bet money on the fact
mm,
that they will do pretty well henceforth. That doesn't guarantee they'll win the tournaments, but I bet they'd become a transformed team. Not least
mm,
because of his reputation. All the Italian players will know of him. And he gets the best out of players. He just has got that thing about him, hasn't he? That he
yeah,
motivates players to be better
it
than they
does.
are.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, what does Italy need to do to, you
Mm.
know, get to be Italy again? Because we know Italy as a country they were they were among the best going back a few years. They won obviously they won the World Cup, aren't they, at some point. So I was going to say that, and then I saw that news about Pep
Yeah.
Guardiola. I thought, wow, yeah, well, there goes our last hope.
Well, yeah, we won't sign him now.
Yeah,
Very often, football management and players to a lesser extent, but football managers, either domestically or internationally, you've got to arrive as a club at a certain point in time to successfully get a manager you want. He's got to be
mm,
available. He's got to want to come to you. There's all sorts of variables which come into play, aren't there? So
mm,
I suppose it's like life. We cross paths with people at certain times, and we don't cross paths with other people who may have benefited us and we benefited them because circumstantially it wasn't the time. And I suppose all you can do is say, well, whatever the end result of any of these things, certainly football managers, that's how it is supposed to be. You can't defeat Providence or whatever else we might call it. But it is a shame that Pep wasn't in a position to accept the overtures from the FA
yeah,
which they undoubtedly were making to him. But he
yeah,
decided to carry on with Manchester City,
yeah.
which I find sad. But yeah, I can't say I'm pleased to hear that because he was someone who I secretly or openly hoped would, one way or another, in the next year or two, become our
Yeah.
manager.
And
But
he would have
now
loved, he
that
would have,
kind of it
yeah,
seals it, doesn't it?
yeah, sorry, yeah.
Not
He would
not
have
going to
loved the
happen.
job. He would have really loved the job as well, because we
Mm.
know he loves England, don't he? So he would have really loved to, take that job, really, because it would have been like him staying back, but only
Yeah,
for the whole
yeah.
country. Yeah. Now, the next one is Lamil Yamal on Lionel Messi. He said the greatest player in history and someone I've always admired. At the end of the match, I showed him much respect. He told me to keep following my path and that the future belongs to our generation. Those words mean just as much to me as the gold medal around my neck. Now, he's been the bigger person here, isn't he? Lamine Yamal. I mean, he's only
Yeah, of
19.
course.
He's been a bigger person here because he's seen what injustice was being meted out to his country's team, and yet he said that about Lionel Messi. I mean, would you have said that about Messi?
Well, I mean, in fact, there's a history between them, I think, because I've seen photographs since the final of Messi a few years ago now, obviously, but sort of holding young Lamel in his arms, like when he was a baby.
All
And then
right.
there was another photograph, probably 4 or 5 years later, a bit of Messi with Lamel, and of course Lamel he signed for Real Madrid No, it's Barcelona, isn't it? Of course, he's
Barcelona,
at
yeah.
Barcelona. He signed for them, I think, when he was 7, which does happen. I mean, I think someone who might have been taken to the World Cup, I don't know, Trent Alexander-Arnold. He didn't have a
Mm,
great season, but he was signed by Liverpool, I think, when he was 6. So
mm,
potential is, and I've seen a couple of clips of Lamel when he was 6 or 7 playing football, and yeah, you could see he had something outstandingly different. He was just amazing in his control of the ball, and so he was always going to make it. So, but he's got that kind of, I think, every so often, because in his lifetime, Messi has always been considered a great player. They
mm,
had photographs of them together. So I think it doesn't surprise me that despite what was going on at the final whistle or after it, that Lamel sought out Messi to say what he said, and Messi said some good things to him, because we're not saying in any way that Messi joined in. He did not that I could see with the physical stuff or anything like that. I felt
mm.
as captain he might have done more to dissuade his colleagues, and not least to face maybe applaud Spain when they got their medals. I mean, that's the tradition that the losing side does that, and then they obviously go off feeling disappointed it wasn't them. So
Mm.
I'm a bit disappointed in Messi in that sense. But yeah, I mean, he wasn't one of the people, the proponents of the violence, was he? He
No.
maybe had a responsibility as captain. But yeah, I think he has always rated young Lamel, and I suspect they will go on being friends, albeit across the world or wherever, because
Mm.
they both occupy a very high place in the pantheon of football greats. So yeah,
Yeah. Now there's a picture making the rounds on the internet, and it's about Lamine Yamal holding up a banner saying, and what it was written in Spanish, so I had to translate it. Now, there's this celebrity fighting match in competition in France, and where celebrities come in fight. I didn't know about that, but anyway, he's invited Paredes, the one that was punching the
all
other
right.
one, to come and have a fight with officially have a fight with Gavi. So,
Who's invited him?
uh, so Lamine Yamal is
Yeah.
invited
Oh wow.
Paredes from Argentina to
Yeah.
come to that annual celebrity fight in
All right.
in uh, in Spain to come and fight one of them. So
What is it like a box? Is it a boxing match, something like that?
I think so because he said it's
Yeah.
a fighting match. So whether it's boxing or kickboxing, I don't know what the rules are, but it'd
Yeah,
be
but is
interesting.
was it tongue in cheek? I mean, or it's not a serious invite, is it? It was more like pointing out that Paredes was really quite violent. Was that what
It
it was
was.
about?
It was, but
Yeah.
knowing Paredes, he might take it off. I don't
Well,
know.
yeah, he should do, really. I don't suppose he will, though. You'd like to
Yeah,
think that after his antics, that he might have, I don't know, it depends what sort of people or person he is. But most people would think, well, if I'd done that in the heat of the moment afterwards, my bitter disappointment, and I behaved like that, I feel quite embarrassed and a bit ashamed. And you would sort of say something, albeit online, to that effect.
yeah,
And maybe Paredes has, and the other guy, Manila, as well. I don't know, but you feel that there's a gap. You feel there should be some kind of apology or acknowledgement on their part, because that might make it a bit easier for whatever punishment they get. If they said, look, I was way out of order. I don't know what came over me. I was so disappointed. I've learned a lesson. I want to apologise to Spain and to those players I attacked. But I just need to say that, I'm not that person. But that's what most of us would probably say. But whether he will, I don't know.
yeah.
He
Oh,
should. He certainly
well,
should.
it should. But I think what I was going to say lastly is I think the clubs in Europe, wherever clubs they're playing for, should, punish them for something. You
Hmm.
know, yeah, I mean, the club has disciplinary procedures, And if your
Yeah,
player is doing that, well, who says they're not gonna do it in one of your matches?
yeah. It's
You
bringing
know,
the
it
club
was
into disrepute, isn't it?
it
Really,
is, yeah,
what
yeah,
they
yeah,
do there.
yeah.
Yeah,
Actually, that should be a crime. There should be a police report for that. Assault. It was on camera. You can't
yeah.
deny it. Well, yeah.
It can
It's not.
happen. That can happen. I don't remember, but I believe there was a case in Scotland, and I mean, I won't name the player because it's a long time ago. But there was a player.
Hmm.
I don't know whether he played for Rangers or Celtic, but I think he had a fight on a pitch in a game, and I believe he was prosecuted for quite serious assaults and went to prison. Now,
Oh,
as I say, I'm not going to name the person, but and I may not have all the facts right. I do believe it was an assault in a football game that led to him being imprisoned for a few months, I think. So
wow.
it's not without precedent. If you do something on a football pitch, if you thump somebody, without good cause, then you are liable as you would be in public on a high street or whatever, with the
Hmm.
possibility of being sued for grievous bodily harm or assault. So it's not unheard of that. I mean, in this situation, I no doubt FIFA would hush it all up, or they'd encourage those concerned to drop it. And I'm
Yeah.
sure the players themselves who were attacked would say, "No, I don't want to take that further." But yeah, it does make you think, doesn't it? Really, because where could that end? You could get a very serious injury to somebody, if it went too far, and all sorts of possibilities come to mind.
Absolutely. Anyway, so this is all we've got time for. Do you want to conclude for us, please, Rob?
Yeah, okay. Well, we've covered a lot of the World Cup. It was, despite everything we've said, we've looked at some of the negatives and some of the difficulties, but it was a great competition, as the World Cup usually is. So, in that sense, well done to FIFA for the good things that they did to bring that tournament to the world. So there we are. I'm Trevor Gear, and he calls me Bruv,
And I'm Emmy Hickins, and he calls me Cos. It's goodbye from me.
and it's goodbye from me.
Oh,
Good.
yes.
We weren't running out of things to say today at all, were we? Not that we
No,
usually are,
no,
but
no. There was just
we
too
had,
much to talk about.
yeah, many other things we could have covered as well. It's good. Well done.
Absolutely.
Good stuff.
Absolutely.
So I'll
Okay.
see you next week,
All right. See you next week, my brother.
and I'll let you know in advance what subjects I will come up with.
I'll be looking forward to
You have a
that.
good week.
All right. And you. All right, bye.